while other areas receiving sun benefits at the angle. When the sun was most remote from such areas, would be experiencing the is-day and winter. There would thereby result variations in the exact time of direct sun for the different universe areas along the sun's course of inconceivable extent. Such could be the development between the sun and all areas of the universe whole, even while every area of the whole could be seemingly bearing the same daily relation to the sun. However, that seeming condition would develop from each universe area's daily movement toward and away from the sun's course. Though a particular area might seem to be approaching the sun could be at its most remote sun course point from the area. The appearance of direct sun could prevail at such a time and place, but the benefits of direct sun relation would be absent. The terrestrial equatorial area and the corresponding celestial equatorial area, or T-zones, would result from the fact that such areas would reach the highest point in space on the universal undulation, making for the day and night of all areas. But the Tourette zone areas would never reach the lowest point in space, most remote from the sun's course, to which temperate zone areas would be obliged to move like the undulating boats of the illustration. The tour zones of the universe would reach only the point of obliged, through the function of the universal undulation, to reach absolute even key for areas of the boat. The water's surface even keel for land areas of the universe, making daily angulation would mean the lowest point of the undulating in space. The daily participation by torrid zone areas and the universal undulation toward and away from the sun's course would be sufficient to ensure day and night change for such areas. But because of the added advantage of their location on the universal undulation, their daily movement, or dip away from the sun course and toward the lowest midnight point in space, need not be as sharp as that of other areas, and their speed at such time and place could be increased, so that they would get away from the low space faster than temperate zone areas of the terrestrial and the celestial. That feature would provide a time advantage and approaching their daily high point toward the sun's course. Hence, for all tours-ons throughout the universe, there would be shorter nights and greater warmth, and there would not be the marked seasonal changes of temperate zone areas. On the other hand, the frigid zones or polar areas of the universe would hold such placement on the universal undulation that they would have to reach the lowest possible space point, and the undulating movement of their particular part of the universal undulation would be barely perceptible when compared with the movement of other areas. Hence, for half of the year, their movement of ascent in space to the highest point approaching the sun's course would be negligible, and it would result in the 6 months of darkness and near darkness characteristic of frigid zones during the other 6 months of daylight, or approximation there, to the same frigid areas, terrestrial and celestial, would hold a relatively stable position toward the highest universal undulation point in space. The position of frigid areas during that period of universal undulation would provide proximity to the sun's course, permitting sunlight to prevail. However, during the period of high space point occupancy, the frigid areas having 6 months daylight would not experience a direct perpendicular relation to the sun. In its yearly course, no area of the universe can experience the period of direct sun relation, but the continued 6 months propinquity to the sun's course would be sufficient to provide the condition of enduring daylight. Therefore, though the frigid areas of the universe would have sufficient summer angle relation to the sun, for a measure of daylight beyond that of other areas, they would be deprived of direct overhead relation to the sun during that period. Hence, there would not be provided the measure of heat lished upon tropical and temporary areas during a part of that same period. In other words, as the frigid areas held their highest undulation point or proximity to the sun's course, it would not represent the high space point of temperate or T-zone areas. It would permit reception of sufficient sun force to ensure continuing light, but the angle of that reception would prohibit the intensity of heat received by temperate and tropical areas during part of the same period when they were at their highest point of the undulation. There would be other conditions influencing seasonal changes of the year for terrestrial and celestial areas participating in the perpetual universal undulation toward and away from the sun's course, and space infinite. there may well exist the very definite influence that would result from lack of consistency in the sun's dispensation of energy, which produces light and heat, or at least substantially contributes thereto over terrestrial and celestial land areas. It could be that the sun's dispensation of energy varies from time to time. At times, some areas of the undulating universe all would be receiving less of solar energy. Then at other times, such a condition could develop from the fact that, as certain areas reach their sun's course, point of summer, the sun would be emitting less energy than it did when other areas arrived at a corresponding position in space. That factor would offset the benefits such areas would normally receive as a result of their direct relation to the sun, and its course, a comparable condition, could influence the winter period of various terrestrial and celestial areas. They could be benefited by the sun's increase of energy dispensation, and there would be modification of the winter cold of such areas. There is no criterion that dispensation of solar energy does not vary in quantity and/or quality, but there is every indication to sustain the premise of periodic change in the sun's dispensing of energy, hence the location of connected universe areas on the universal undulation, and their angle of relation to the sun would influence climatic conditions, seasonal change, and the length of days. The speed of movement in attaining and holding high and low space points nearest to and most remote from the sun would likewise contribute to seasonal change in the length of terrestrial and celestial days, and the periodic difference in the measure of dispensed solar energy would also merit consideration as an influencing agent. Another complicating possibility is that the sun, while making its yearly rounds of the universe along its course, performs a secondary movement away from and return toward the constructed universe, that would make for periodic increase of distance from terrestrial and celestial areas to the sun's course. Hence, some universe areas could be expected to benefit and others to lose benefits by the secondary sun movement, changing the sun's course. It would depend on their location in the universe, accordingly, to consider a secondary movement by the sun. The conditions to develop from a difference in the sun's dispensation of energy could be expected to develop, even though the energy remained constant at all times and for all areas of the universe whole. That secondary movement would be the equivalent of periodic modification and intensification of energy dispensation. Further, the sun may veer from its course in conjunction with periodic modification or intensification of the solar energy dispensed. There is no criterion within the extensive domain of astrophysics and its assumptive mathematical values to deny such possibility. Infinite mathematics may reign supreme in the universe of the mathematician, and they may dictate the functions of such universe. But the universe of their application has been proved alien to reality. By realistic modern performance, astrophysics has no formula for the directional activity of cosmic rays within our immediate stratosphere area of infinite space. And since that stratosphere area is only t-distance of a few minutes journey over the Earth's surface, there certainly cannot be real determination of energy dispensed by the sun at its assumed distance. And if a gauge of the solar energy dispensed was to be had, it could have application only to the time of measuring the energy dispense. It could not gauge the energy dispensed ever over a 12-month period, and the gauge could apply only to the immediate area where measurement was made. By no stretch of the imagination could it be considered to apply to all the areas of the universal H, in view of archaic theories, assumed movements of an user globe. Earth, there's nothing sensational in the possibility he projected that the sun may perform a secondary movement to sustain a postulate which isolates the Earth and disrupts the realistic universe. The Earth is considered to make a primary daily movement on its imaginary axis at the rate of 1,000 m an hour, and disrupts the realistic universe. The Earth is considered to make a primary daily movement on its imaginary axis at the rate of 1,000 m an hour, and it is assumed to make a secondary movement in its yearly course toward the sun at the rate of 6,000 m an hour. Observe the flywheel universe in Figure 2, Chapter 2. It is stripped of the L-lens-produced curves shown for the inner and outer sky areas of its companion. Figure 1. It conveys how the free sun could veer from a direct space path during its yearly course over the constructed universe and that periodic departure from course could take it any number of miles away from the created universe, there is no way of illustrating where the temporary sun path would be, but the secondary movement away from the universe would be in a way realized by drawing a line from the illustration stratosphere center toward one looking at the illustration. There would be no purpose in drawing the line from the stratosphere center toward either side of the universe illustration, therefore with proper application to the physically connected and continuous universe of Figure 2, in which the globular deceptions of Figure 1 have been eliminated, one will be able to visualize every land surface area of the universe undulating toward and away from the sun's course in space. That sun course may be considered to extend through the center of the illustration. From the point where the sun is shown at the top of the flywheel, it would move through the dark stratosphere area of the illustration. It would travel the entire length, and it would then return along that length, regardless of what the sun's precise position may be. Every undulating area of the universe whole would retain its relation to and physical continuity with the universe whole, and to the universal undulation toward. And away from the sun's course, the results would be the same if the sun's placement were in the center of the dark stratosphere area of the illustration, from which point it would complete a yearly circling of the illustrated universe circumference. Regardless of precise sun course, the daily undulation of all universe areas would cause it deceptively to appear that every area was circling around the sun as an isolated unit of the universe whole. The undulation movement of universe areas would cause the illusion of circling around the sun to persist, regardless of what the sun's location in space might be, at parallel to that experience. Illusion of circling around the sun is found in a local condition. One can ride a roller coaster, moving with great speed up and down or toward and away from a huge or in proximity to the undulations of the coaster. Each speedy approach toward the light and departure from the light must create the illusion of movement around the light. Such example is elementary, but its dagger concept to grasp the greater speed of the universal undulation toward and away from the sun aright, with a magnitude beyond concept in terminating this word portrait of the connected and continuous universe and its motion. It seems fitting to relate that the sun shown in the illustration will be red when observed against the perpetually dark background of the space existing beyond sky areas of the universe. When one observes the sun from within stratosphere darkness, it has none of the luminous sunlight quality to be observed from land areas. The sun is just a red disk when viewed from beyond the blue sky. The illumination develops from mixture of cosmic rays with chemical elements of the sky, enveloping land areas throughout the constructed universe whole. The result of such mixture produces sunlight and heat on all land under the universal sky. And it is that cosmic ray contact with gaseous sky elements that results in the luminosity of every outer sky surface area, to be observed against the dark stratosphere. The same stratosphere darkness prevails over celeste sky areas, as is known to prevail over terrestrial sky areas, and unless that darkness did prevail over sky areas everywhere, there would be no art of astronomy. Only the darkness permits detection of the skylight. We now proceed from the flywheel illustration of the universe and its motion to the original illustration of 1928, though the first is last descriptive analysis there is nevertheless a logical pattern presentation of the original illustration, permits observation of only a segment of the entire universe, embraced by the flywheel illustration. However, it may serve to demonstrate the transcendent values in land areas discovered in opposition to centuries of scientific deduction, denying the land's existence beyond the North Pole and the South Pole points of our Earth to accomplish the illustration.